Hi, all. Good morning or good evening, depending on where you are located. Thank you for joining our Power BI webinar. My name is Deepak Shankar. I'm a community PM with Microsoft Business Application Group. And today we have Mike Callow, an MVP with us, who is going to take us on no code with custom visualizations. Here we have Mike with us. Mike, it's all yours now.
Hello. Thanks for the introduction. Appreciate it. So my name is Mike Carlo, and I am working on a project from the Microsoft research team. So Microsoft built this tool. It's called Charticulator. I took a derivative of it and put it on my website, and it's actually called charts.powerbi.tips. So we're going to walk through how to build custom visuals without writing a line of code. So to give you a little bit of background here, if I could advance my slides. This is a bit about me. So this is who I am. I'm Mike Carlo, a principal data and AI architect. I'm an independent consultant. I run and own the website powerbi.tips. There's my LinkedIn profile and Twitter if you want to get a hold of me. Also, I run a YouTube channel where a lot of these videos and instructions are also out on the internet. So in case you want to follow along on your own or check out some of my other content around building charts and things, you are more welcome to do that. So ooh, this looks a little bit skewed here. Let's see if I can make it a bit right size. It's cutting it off. Let's see if I can get this better. Seems to be okay. We're going to pinch hit here and we'll go right from the slide deck. So let me zoom this in a bit bigger and we'll go right from here. Okay, so now that way you can see everything. Sorry about that. Let's shrink this up a bit more. There we go. We'll do that. All right, let's keep going. All right, so here is the kind of the visual landscape. So you have in the Power BI tool, you have standard visualizations on the very far left here. These are all the standard visuals that you get out of the box in a number of charts, chart types. With each of those, you have a series of properties that you can adjust. Then there is on the right-hand side, we have like full custom developed custom visuals. So this is when you're writing straight code, you're designing in D3.js. And so there really hasn't been any kind of middle ground between doing development on the standard tool inside Power BI Desktop or working fully in a custom visual or having to write your own code. And this is actually the marketplace where other companies are publishing their custom visuals for you to go get and consume. So there's some fun ones, there's some really impactful ones. There's kind of really been no medium or middle ground. So in walk this no code solution, and this is the Charticulator project. And this is the project that the Microsoft research team developed. All of the team members who developed it are down there below, kind of a good team there. The tool is an open source web platform, and it's basically around the idea of you have elements and you have data, and so you have to bind various data elements together on a single visual. So essentially Charticulator is building only one visual at a time. A neat part is this has all been open sourced, so I was able to go grab some code off of GitHub, look at the project, and I did a couple derivatives of this, and now I have a gallery of custom visuals you can go download from our site. So moving on, here's some more things you can build in Charticulator and kind of why you may want to use this tool versus building standard visuals. There's a lot more graphical properties that you have per visual elements. So one of the things that is very unique to Charticulator is this angular axis or a ring, right? So if I need to have weather around the entire year, that kind of makes a really interesting story if you're doing that in a circle, right? So you could have, you know, January of 2019 here, and then as the summer months get warmer, it turns red, the data bars change slightly, and then you can see in the fall here it gets cooler again, and then we're back down into winter again with those colder months. So this is a simple little graph around some weather information for Boston. Additionally, they have other chart types here. So this is one where they're doing some custom formatting on a table as well, where you're able to take a bunch of dates and publish them as a graphical matrix level with different coloring. Now this could be done in Power BI Desktop, but some of the styling options are not available there. And then finally, you look over here, this is like a version of a Sankey chart or ribbon chart, however you want to look at that. And again, another version of how this tool would work. There's actually a great white paper out about this tool, Charticulator. It's listed here down below where you can read more about it, and it talks really in depth around visualization techniques, and how to use the tool, and why they're building this open source tooling for you. So here's kind of some derivations of what I've done. So I've taken the tool itself, and knowing that not every single individual will be able to create elaborate visualizations, I decided to build a backend to the Charticulator tool, or the charts tool. So I actually forked the code, and it's now live on charts.powerbi.tips. So with that, I can then capture some of the items that are made from the community, and then selectively pick some of the items that are out there that you can download and go play with, or see how they built those other visuals directly from the charts program. So those are kind of two websites that you can check out kind of after the fact. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time here going over the tool. We're going to get right into doing like a demo of it. I'll go over an overview, and then we're just going to build some charts. So I'm going to walk you through each of these chart types and how we build them. There will be a new one here. I think everything here I've documented online with the YouTube channel, and possibly I'll get a recording of this one too, and I'll break down these other videos as well for demos and add them onto the channel as well. So you'll have all of this later on. Okay, so done with the presentation stuff, on to the demos. So let's start over here with Power BI Desktop. I think that's probably the most appropriate place for us to begin. So I'm going to load up just a clean file here. So in this file, in the Power BI Desktop file, I have some data sets that we're going to be able to look at here. And so usually how I build charts from charts.powerbi.tips is I start with a data table. I kind of start with some information that I'm looking to use inside my chart. So I almost always start my experience in Power BI Desktop. And what I'll do is I'm showing you a sample data set here. This is just a simple table where we have some category values, and then I have some regular values here. So a category, like a numerical column, and then number values. So what we'll do here is we will be able to, let's go over here to some of the table information. So I'll typically start by just building a table on the page. And then once I have that table built, I'll then add all the columns into that visual that I need. So I'm doing this so I can actually build myself a data set. So this is my category values, my date values. I'll click the ellipsis up here, and then we'll export the data out of this. So this will export my data, and I'm going to just drop it here on my desktop, and we're just going to save this data. So I've done the experience inside Power BI. So all of the data modeling, all the measure creations, everything else that we're going to be talking or be doing to produce this particular table, I would have already done that inside Power BI Desktop. So now I'm going to leave Power BI Desktop. There's my data file that we just made. And now we're going to move over to charts.powerbi.tips. So let me get that up here. Here is our charts.powerbi.tips website. So let's see if I've got zoom it on here. Let's get that going. There we go. So we're just visiting the website charts.powerbi.tips. And up here, you'll notice kind of two key things right away. You can visit our website by going here, or you can go to the gallery. And this is all the information I'm producing. So this is where the YouTube videos live. This is where we have some featured graphs and charts that you can go download for free and go check them out and see how to use them. And I'm trying to provide better documentation. It's a little bit hard to just take someone else's work and just jump right into the middle of it and make it work in your visual. So I'm doing better jobs of documenting that. Another individual who's been kind of instrumental in using Charticulator is Nick Snap. So this is Nick here. You can follow him on Twitter here by getting this handle. Nick is amazing, and he has a great way of thinking about some of these visuals. He's produced these visuals. These are the ones that he's produced. And I linked to stuff that he's produced and put it all on the site here for you to go download it. And then let's go get out of the gallery here. Okay, so I'm going to give a quick walkthrough of just the tool and just showing you what's going on here. So over here on the left-hand side, we're going to kind of navigate through from left to right here. Our first area here in the upper left-hand corner here, this is kind of like your file settings, right? You have a new file, open, save, and then you have a export button. This is the export. And then you have undo and redo, and then a trash can. So if you want to delete the visual that you've made, you don't like it, you can get rid of it. The next thing I'll point out here is this area called the marks. So we'll go here to this marks area. So A mark essentially is a shape, a line, a text item, or a picture, right? These are things that you can put on top of the visual. So marks can be placed in the glyph area, and this is the glyph area here. And then the marks can also be placed on the plot area down below. And we'll show a little bit more demo around those pieces when we get into that. The next area we're going to talk about here is these next couple bars. A linkage is, oops, can I just erase that? I got to start over again. No, let's try that. All right. So the link area, so link is where I take various data elements, and it could be between charts, it could be inside a single chart, and it could be linking data points together. The link lets you build a line or a band that goes between two objects, and so that's how you would create a link between things. Guides, I don't typically use guides very often, but these are guides, so I keep doing that. Gotta hold the control key. There we go. So the guides area, these are things like on the page that you can align things to. By default, the chart program already has guides already attached on this. This is a guide. This is another guide. We have another guide over here. And these define regions or spaces around the page. Now, if you drop an arbitrary guide in the middle of the page without any reference point, it doesn't really have any bearing. So I almost always, if I'm using guides, I'm primarily using these ones on the end here. And this is where I'm evenly dividing segments of guides. And you can then bind them to various corners or aspects of your page that will then help them auto resize. Next, we have plot segments. So this is our plot segment area. And plot segments is really, you have two-dimensional plot segments and a single dimension or one-dimension plot area. So these are really how an X and Y on a chart would be your two-dimensional items, and then just a simple line chart is your single line one-dimensional plot segments. And then you have this concept of a scaffold. Again, I don't really use these very much. I think the only one that I've ever really used is this angular one or the circle one. And then you could have a pencil where you could essentially draw your own axis or draw your own data axis onto the page. So you can define that with a pencil mark. On the left-hand side here, we have columns and our data set. So this is really where you bring in your data initially. The first button here is to swap out your data set. And the second button here, the little 3 dots, is to look at the data set so you can observe the numerical values or text values. You have the data down here below, and then if it's a shape, you'll see that it's just like a little star or triangle. So that's like a dimensional thing. It's text fields, essentially. And then if you have a value or numerical, you get this little ruler thing next to it. So you know that's a number value that you're going to work with. Next, we'll look at these other areas here across the left side. The glyph, and this is a bit hard to think about. So if you think about like an XY scatter chart, actually, it might be better if I just illustrate this. If I click in the main area here, you can see that I've highlighted plot segment number 1. If I drag this symbol directly into the glyph area, essentially I've made a single dot, and I'm going to adjust this because it looks like there's a line between them, but there's technically not. For every single data element in my data set, and I can click the ellipsis here to show you that here's the months, cities, and values, a numerical value. For every single row that it sees, it will produce a single dot. Now, the glyph, this square area here, so this essentially is a shape, right? So I can put multiple areas or items inside the glyph. The glyph acts like one single object for wherever that data point shows up. So it's technically not a bar. It's almost like a single data point. So if I add another item here into this chart and then adjust where it's linked, now you can see I have 2 circles in the same plot area, and I can adjust the color here so you can see that. Now for every single data point, I have 2 graphical objects inside this area here. Now, one thing you'll note is when I click on this gray one, there's a green dot. Green dots are really important in the charts tool because what it does is it tells you where your point is defined by. If I click this other one here, it's white. So there's no definition to where this point would live. It's kind of floating in free air. So if I drag this point over to this corner here, now you can see that it's green and now it's defined by this guide that is inside this chart piece. if I go into the chart area and I stretch these little bar things out, that's actually adjusting what's happening between these guides here for this particular glyph. All right, moving on to layers. Layers are the reverse of what you think. So a title, the things at the bottom of this list are on the top of the layers, kind of unintuitive. But if I do another example here, if I just build out a simple little 2 marks on the page, here's 1 mark, and I'll put another mark on the page here, and I can adjust them so they're just over top of each other. And let's change the color of one of them so we can see it. Okay, so shape number 2 is on top of shape number 1. So the shapes towards the bottom of this list are the highest layers that you have. If I wanted to rearrange which layer is layering these items, I would grab shape 2 and then drag it above. And now shape 1 is above shape 2. So that's how the layering aspect of this will work as well. Moving on to the glyph area, for every single object you add to the glyph, it becomes a new object down here below. So you have all these different objects down below in the glyph area, so you can select what you want and adjust them as well. And finally, I'll minimize these two so you can see the whole thing. For every single object, I'll open the layers, for plot areas or text or shapes or even symbols, every single thing has properties. So you can adjust the properties of them here manually. And in this case, it's auto adjusting. So whatever I adjust the information to, it auto adjusts. But then I can define like a height. You know, this is 30, right? And then that shape becomes a specific height. Okay, so enough with the demoing and walking through the tool. Oh, a last thing I think, well, one more here. The last area I want to say note here is you can delete items by pressing the delete key on items on the page. So if you want to get rid of stuff, you can just highlight it and delete it. And then if you want to adjust the guides, you can then just grab the guides and rearrange them. Now, for the page, when you transfer this through to Power BI Desktop, the guides that are on the page, the way they are right now, are the only guides that will help you define where objects are in Power BI Desktop. So this means if I'm going to use one of these additional guides, I can draw a guide level here. Oops, let's try that again. I should be able to draw here and to here. There it goes. So because this is a guide and this guide has various points, I can see that these guides automatically divide into 4 segments here. But I have to define the corners of those guides on some other guides that are actually on the page. So FYI, just be aware of that when you use these. You'll need to be mindful of that when you're building as well. Okay, let's start with a fresh chart and let's go back here. I'm going to hit refresh on the page. And there we go, clean chart. I'm going to get rid of the demo here by clicking it and selecting delete. I'm going to adjust the page so everything has the right span. So length, width, height, and top are all 50. And we're going to swap out our data set. So I'm going to go hit the replace data set with CSV file. I'm going to go back to my desktop and grab the CSV data that I had previously. Now that I've loaded it, I can look at it and observe, okay, here's exactly the same data that I had in Power BI Desktop, category and values. And now we can just start drawing. So we have a plot segment that's already placed here, plot segment number 1. I'm going to drag the category and drop it in the x-axis. And then I'm going to grab a mark, drop that here. And then we're going to add the values to the height of each of those bars. So now I have A, B, and C. And now each of those bars have a height. If I want to colorize these bars, if I want to add a color to them, I can then add, again, the category now to the fill, and now each bar will have a different color. Now, granted, this is nothing revolutionary. You can do all of this stuff back in Power BI Desktop. This is more illustrative to help you just see how you would build things here. The last part here is we can click on the shape, and this is the part that's a bit unintuitive. If you need a y-axis here, you don't want to drop the values on the y-axis because, as I said before, these are making the glyphs have like an actual position of A and then a Y position where those glyphs would be. So instead of doing that, we're going to click on the height property of the shape, and then we're going to add a legend. And so now this adds my Y-axis legend for this particular glyph or the shape that's inside here. Okay. Now that we're done with this, we can then go back up here and we can click export. And there's one option here to export this custom visual. And then my two data axes I'm not going to change. You can change some auto scaling on or off here if you want. I'm going to leave that alone. And I'll just call this a simple bar chart. Now, I have noted if there is a space in here, so if you did bar space chart, I'll zoom in here a little bit, bar space chart, that will cause issues in Power BI Desktop. So it's best to leave all your names with no spaces in them because it's much happier. And then you can enter your name or whatever else. I'm going to leave that stuff alone for now. And then I'll export Power BI visual. Now we get a chart.powerbi viz file. So this is the visualization file. So I will minimize this, and there it is. We got our chart bar chart viz. So let's go back over to Power BI Desktop. We're going to go back in here, and we already have our visual with the data we want. So I'm going to go over here to the ellipsis inside the visualizations panel, this one, and we're going to click that, and then it'll ask us to, what do you want to do? We're going to import from file. We're going to go back to our desktop, and we're going to click our bar chart. We're going to hit open, assuming everything, we did all our stuff right. Should say OK, and then you'll get a new icon down here that is our bar chart. So we can click out here in the, making sure nothing's highlighted, click on the bar chart directly. This is now our bar chart, and now we can add some properties to this. Now, we have two columns, category and values, in our data table, but we have three areas to put information in. So the granularity is something important to note. Granularity defines what data points are going to be shown on the chart. And by default, charts always aggregates everything. It's either doing a sum or an average or a value, something there to like do some level of aggregation. And because of that, you actually have to define what is the row level detail that you need to see. So I need to see ABC, which is defined by category. So if I had multiple categories of multiple A's, multiple B's, or whatever that would look like, actually, I think I could show you that as well here. So I think if I go this one and I say category, and let's say, well, actually, this data set only has those couple values. So we'll leave these alone for now. I don't think there's actually individual values in there. In other data sets, you'll see that a bit clearer. We'll grab the category label here, and we'll grab that to our granularity, because that's the lowest granular piece we're going to want to see. The category will be added to the category, and this is for our colors. And then the values will be added to the values column. And there we go. So being able to build a bar chart. Now, we could build the same chart inside Charticulator. Inside Power BI Desktop, but there will be properties here that we're going to adjust that we just don't have inside Power BI Desktop at this time. So there are some limitations with your standard visuals that come out of the box. Now it's been getting better and it's becoming more dynamic, but there is some distinct limitations, and so that's where the charts tool can pick up some of that extra weight. Okay. Let's move on over to the next one. We're going to do a stacked bar chart. Now for this one, we also need a table again. So let's build out a quick table here of some information. So I'm going to close my data source. We'll start a new one. I'm going to drop in a table. And then in this table, we're going to have a couple other items here. So we're going to have two categories, a categorical column. These are like text columns. And then we're going to have some values here. Now, I probably want to show more than just the low level detail here, because this information is aggregated. So here I'm going to say don't summarize the values, and this is my full data set, right? So this is everything that I have in this chart. Let's change the background here just slightly so you can see what's going on. Change the background, change the transparency up to 0. Okay, so now we have two different categorical values. So I have category 1, category 2, and then some values for each of those combinations. So now what we can do is we can then grab all this information out, click on the ellipsis, export the data, and then we'll call this data 2, data number 2. Save that to the desktop again. Okay, so now we have that done. There's our new data file. So now we're going to go back over to the charts. So we'll go back over here and let's start a new chart. So I'm going to refresh the page and just start afresh. So here we are on the new page. Now I'm going to swap out my data again. So replace data and go data 2, hit open. Now, nope, apparently I didn't do it right. Data 2, hit open. There it goes. So now I have category 1, category 2, and our values, what we used earlier. Clicking the ellipsis here lets me see the data pieces. That's what I'm looking for. Great. So now let's build our stacked bar chart. So same concept. We're going to grab a mark. We're going to drop it on the page here. Our first category, let's look at our data here. We want the first category to be these first category items. So we're going to grab category 1 and we'll drop that on the x-axis. So now we've been able to group each of those data points by these different categories. The next part here is we would like to add a color between the categories. So category 2, we'll now drop that on the fill. So I'll grab category 2 here, and having shape highlighted, we'll go down here, the fill of that, and now it will change the color. So now we've been able to change the color of those different elements. Okay, and then the next part here is we need to start stacking them as opposed to having them side by side. So if I click the chart area here, the chart area has additional properties. I can click this very first item here, and it lets me change the stacking of this initial chart. So we'll say stack in the Y direction. So now all of our bars are stacked in the Y direction. And our final step here is we really want each of the bars to have a certain distance or distance between of them. So we're actually going to take the values area and move it over here to the height of the bar. So now each of our bars have a different height. We can narrow the gap by drawing the gap and drawing it closer. And then our final step here is we can either add like a distinction line around it. So we can go to the shape and we can add a stroke to the shape. Let's add like a little gray line around, maybe a bit darker. Yeah, a little gray line. So now we have some segmentation between each of the items in the second category. Let's go a little bit further here and let's add some more items. Let's grab a text field and drop that on here. And now we'll add values to the text value. And you'll note here, it's a little hard to see on the green one, but there's a little green dot that's centered there, but the text is off-centered. So I'm going to grab the text and actually recenter that on top of the bar. So now all of my text is centered on each of the bars. Great. Now we have that, and our next step here is to add a height of all the bars. So now we have to go click the shape, click on the height, and click on the bind data option, and I'll add a legend. So now we're adding a legend to the y-axis for these data pieces. Great. This is something that we can't quite do in Power BI Desktop. We're getting a little bit there, but maybe we want to add another number on top of each of these charts for the total amount for the entire bar. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to make another chart here. So I'm going to take the original chart and shrink it. And now I'm going to add a new glyph to the page here. And this is important. So when you're making separate charts that need to interact differently based on the same data, you actually have to make a glyph first before you make a plot segment. This really tripped me up for quite a while. So then you click the plot segments, and now I'm going to draw out a new plot segment over here on the right. Okay, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to drop category 1 on the x-axis. We're going to grab a mark, drop it on the glyph. We'll grab our values, and we'll make that the height. Now, this isn't looking quite right because we actually want it to be the total for the entire bar. So here's how we fix that. Inside this second chart area, there's this feature called group by. Grouping by means we're going to group by some sort of category. So instead, we're going to add the group by category 1. And what that does is that gives me the total, or actually what it's doing is giving me the average of that group. And we can see here under the attributes for glyph number 2 here, the height of that bar is now the average. So if we click average and then make this the sum, those bars now are the same size as everything that is in category A instead of taking an average. Great, that's what we want. Then going back in here to the graph area, we're going to add a text box here to the top. I'm going to grab the, actually, you know what? Let's delete that. I didn't like how that went in there. Let's try it again. I'm going to go in here to the text box area, and I'm going to click the text box button, and then I'm going to click on the top of the bar and then move my text to just on top. So now I have text on top of each of those bars. I'm going to grab my values and add it here. Now, again, it by default is doing an average of each of these 3 items. So we have to go down here while keeping the text item highlighted, go down to the attributes area, and we're going to modify this code here. I said no code. This is very minor code. Okay, we're going to change it from average to sum. And what that does now is total everything in the same column. So now you have these total columns. Let's go back to the shape. Let's turn the color off. So clicking the fill, we're going to turn it to none, and those disappear. So now I have just floating numbers in space. And now what we need to do is turn off the x-axis because we're not going to want two of those. And then we'll put the charts on top of each other. So I'll highlight the area again. I will turn off the x area, plot area. So let me minimize this here. Let's see the x-axis. We do not want to show the x-axis, so turn that off. And there we go. Now I can take my original chart and draw that over to the far right. Take my new chart and drag it to the far left. And now we have a combination of two numbers. Let's delete the demo. I'm going to adjust my plot area to have 50 as my perimeter. And now we've done something that we can't do in Power BI. So we can't segment things out this way and add totals on top of the bars as well as add numbers inside the bars. So now that we're done with this one, let's export this one, export, custom visual. I'll leave everything the same here. And this time we're going to say stacked bar. I'll click download, and there it goes. We've just been able to download the stack bar. So let me minimize this. Excuse me, let me take a drink here. Okay, so now that we've got that, we can go back over to Power BI Desktop, and we will now import this visual. Import from File. We're now going to grab our stacked bar visual that we just made. We'll hit open. Great, everything loaded well. Let's change, let's delete. We'll leave that. I'll just change that. Let's see if we can change it. So I'm going to grab my table that I already made, and I'm going to just change it to the new visual, stacked bar. Boom. Okay, we did not specify the granularity yet, so we're going to need to specify that. So category 1 goes here. Granularity is all these different elements to give us uniqueness. There's category 2. There's our values. And there we go. We've been able to redraw the chart. Uh-oh, we have a problem now because everything is misaligned, right? So we can't quite see what's going on here at these different levels. Well, this is because the data is unsorted. So we actually want to sort not by the values, we actually want to sort by, I think it's category 1? Yes. And then once we sort by category 1, it reorders the data and then replots it so that all the colors are together. And you can change it, sort ascending or descending and changing order there. But everything like this now works like a normal visual. We can then click on category A. It will adjust per what's happening on the report page. I can grab the subcategory E and just see what those look like, or F and show what those look like. So again, it really acts like a normal visual inside the context of Power BI, where you can interact between different elements. You know, there we go. I'm highlighting elements here. So I'm clicking from this chart. You can see which values are selecting inside my chart. So again, another kind of unique chart type, and we're going to keep going on. So I haven't been watching the chat. I don't know, this might be a little good moment here for a quick pause. Are there any chat items I need to worry about? Looks like there's nothing right now. All right, we're going to keep cruising. All right, so moving over to the dual axis. All right, so now we're going to look at building a dual y-axis chart inside charts again. So this is a chart you can't build. You can have a dual axis on both a bar chart and a line chart. So I could build one of those. If I drop here to a line and stacked column chart, I can go here. It's been a while since I've done this, so hopefully I can do this correctly. So if I want to have order date as my shared axis, and I want the column series to be my extended price total. Let's try column values, and I want my line values to be the year-over-year change. Now I can get a dual axis. There we go. So let's change the transparency of this, the background. Let's add a background. Adjust that up a bit. There we go. So now we have two axes. We have dollars amounts and a percent change on the other side, but you can't do this on the line chart. The line chart has no equivalent. So if I did this as a line chart, you get one line that's great, huge number, and the other line is just nothing. You can't adjust it at all. So this becomes a problem. So we've already placed some data here in the table, so I will export this data. So I'll click here, We're going to say export data again. This will be data for demo number 3. Save it to our desktop. All right, let's leave Power BI Desktop and head back over to the tool. So here we are. Let's start a fresh report again. So I'm going to hit refresh, and we're going to clean this off and start again. All right, so we're now again going to swap out the data again. So clicking swap data, data 3, hit open. We're now in this section. Man, it did not take it again. Data 3, open. Must be missing the click there. There we go. So now I have years, quarters, months, and then I have my extended price total and my change year over year. So here is where we can plot some more interesting things on this. So we're going to actually do the same kind of principles we did before. We're going to basically build 2 charts. So let's build the first one. Now we're going to do just a straight scatter, and we're going to use links. So we're going to grab the symbol, and we're going to drop that in our glyph area. So this is now going to plot different glyphs. Now the month is what we're looking for on the x-axis. So I'm going to put the month values there. This will define my x-axis values. And now, because this is a glyph, so if we can think of this glyph as a single point on the graph, this time I'm going to bring the extended price and I'm going to add it to the y-axis. Now this is a great illustration of what's actually happening here. So each glyph, that little circle, even though it's a circle, the circle is actually the intersection of July and this value of like roughly around 51,000, right? So this single data point, the glyph is only being placed right in that little single spot. So that's why when we were using that y-axis on the shapes, why we want to do that as opposed to just adding a y-axis, because now I'm actually shifting, I'm legitimately moving that glyph all over the page. So next thing we want to do is we want to add a link to all the items. So we'll click on the link button and we'll just say create links. And so now we're going to draw a line between each of the links. Now we can change how the line works or is affected. We can use this Bezier, which kind of gives me like a little like squiggly line between things if you want. Or you can just say arc, which in this case is not very helpful to us. We'll just leave it for a line for now. But note that there are different properties there. Let's make some colors on this so we can make it distinguished. So I'm going to go over here. We're going to start with some blues. There's one blue. And so that changed the line only. We still have to change the glyphs. So if I zoom in here, you can see the little glyph itself has not changed. So let's adjust that as well. So we'll click on the symbol 1 and we'll change that fill to also be our blue. There we go. We can adjust the properties of the link. So clicking on link and adjusting the width. Let's go up to maybe like a thickness of 3, give it a little bit of weight there. And then one property that I really like to adjust here, and this is really bugs me when you have dual axis charts, is I really want the axis of the data to match the color of the axis. It really bugs me when that's not done. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the visible properties here. So under visible, we're going to click the ellipsis, and now we're going to adjust the color of both the text as well as the lines. So now this data color matches what's actually on the chart. And I think I actually might have made it a shade too light. Let's try that one more time. Let's go one shade darker. Yeah, I think the shade darker is what I want to use. There, it looks a little bit more matched in color. So now that we've built this one, we need to build another chart for the other data axis. Let's start by making our glyph, because we need a new glyph on a new chart. We're going to grab a new plot segment, draw that in there. We'll again add our months to the x-axis again. And then we will then drop on there a little circle. So we have our circles again. We'll now make our links. Now this time we have 2 plot segments to worry about. So I'm going to turn off plot segment number 1 and just do plot segment 2 and create links there. Now we will add our second measure. So this is the percent change year over year. And there we go. So now we've been able to plot that segment here as well with different elements. Now let's change the colors on all of this stuff. So let's go here to the color of the line. We'll make this like an orange color. We'll go to the symbol down here in the glyphs. We'll change that color to also be that orange color. And I think we wanted to fatten up the line here to the same width as 3. There we go. So now we have those. Let's change the axis values. So clicking on the plot segment number 2, We're going to scroll down here to the y-axis, click the ellipsis, and then we'll change the line color to be orange, as well as the tick color. So now we have that. The last thing we want to do here is we want to flip the direction or the side where the axis is showing. So we're going to flip this from default to opposite. So now it's on the other side of the chart. We can turn the y-axis off by unchecking it. And now we've got two charts that we just need to blend together again. So taking the first chart, stretching it out, taking the second chart, stretching it out. Let's make sure I get it on there. There we go, it's linked, and there we go. Now our data set doesn't have data for the first 3 months, which is fine. It'll render just fine in desktop. Let's get rid of the demo, adjust the page size here slightly. Boom. So now everything looks like it's fitting correctly. All right, so we can now export this. We'll export this one, same thing, Power BI Desktop, and because all of our data came from desktop, we're going to leave those alone, and then we're going to say dual Y. So this is the dual Y axis. Download that visual. So now that we've downloaded this one, we can minimize this, zoom back over to Power BI Desktop, and we're now going to import another custom visual. Import from File, dual Y, and hit Open. We've imported it, and there's our new visual there, dual Y. Let's add him on the page. Add some properties. So for this one, we want to add the order date, and we'll just use year, quarter, months. And then for our month value, we'll grab the order date by month, drop him in there. And then the extended price, we'll add that field as, oh, will we? There we go, now I got it. And then the year-over-year change. Let's add a background so we can see what we just did. And there we go. So now we have our data sorted out there. And because we're using the data access and sorting it the proper way, it's now doing the through the end of July through the beginning of January on that new year. So it's showing all the information that we want there. And it's also doing the two different axes that we want. Okay. All right, moving on along. Let's go into the scatter chart. So this one, oh, scatter time. So we're going to do a derivation. We're going to kind of actually look at the same chart we just did, a scatter chart with the dual axis, but we're going to add some transparency changes to this. So if we look at this data, zoom in there. This data, we have a series. So the series is like the grouping that we want to look at. And then we have this column called order. So this is just an order of items that I had here in my data set. So this is something where I'm saying like maybe this is a time delineated value, or maybe you know, item A happened once at values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so what happens here is this value may be changing over time, and it may be changing in two different dimensional areas. So in this particular graph, I have an X value and a Y value. So imagine your data changing kind of X and Y plot areas over time in each of these dimensions, right? So maybe every single instance over time. So at position 1, it was in these locations, and then it keeps changing over time. So this will be a way of showing time-bound data inside a scatter plot, basically with two different dimensions. So let's get out of here. We will use this data set. So I'm going to click the three ellipsis buttons. We're going to export the data. We're going to call this data number 4. We're going to save this one. Minimize desktop. And there's our data file. We will hop back over to the charts, refresh our page, get a nice clean page here. There we go. And now we will reload some data. So replace the data. We're going to grab data number 4. There we go. Series order X, Y, and X value and Y value. Now this one should be pretty easy to drop in together because we're going to basically just drag and drop a bunch of columns here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to put some dots on the page. So we're going to grab our symbols and drop those on the dots here. We want to put the X value on the X axis, the Y value on the Y axis, just like so. And now we have series. We have those two groupings of items, series A and series B. So now what we want to do is we want to grab the order, and we want to drop the order on, series. We need to grab the series inside the colors. So now those are adjusted by color. We can now create some links And so we can just say link on the series, create links. So now we can see that there are plotted items. And so the path of the line here is really, it's this series projection over time. It's actually moving from point to point, right? Because we have the order column. The orders column will actually tell us which point is first and which point is last. But we really can't distinguish which is first and which is last. And this is really the neat aspect here, is what we can do in here. And this is a distinct property that we can't really get in Power BI Desktop, is the ability to change the transparency of the objects. So we can change the transparency of objects here by going over to the symbol, and we actually have a property called opacity. And so we can bind that to our data. So we can bind the opacity data here. So that then changes things from lighter to darker. We can also grab the link, the linkages between items, and we can also add the order to the opacity there as well. So the idea here is, the darker the color, the more recent the data is. The lighter the color, the older the data is. So we can also go a little bit further with this. It kind of looks a little bit messy. We want to clean up the chart here a bit. The axes don't seem quite right. So let's click on the plot segment. We're going to adjust the range to be 0 to 1, 1 for the x-axis, and then for the y-axis, we're going to go from 0 to 50 now. Now we get a nice clean axes on this one. And the colors are very light, so let's just adjust those in general. So we're going to change our A color. Let's go really like sharp here. Let's go with dark colors. And then on the axis B here, let's go with another really dark color. We'll go with a blue, something that's really will pop. So that way people who can see this clearly. All right, now you can see that we have these faded out items, and then as they get darker, as they progress through time, they become more less transparent and more vivid on the page. All right, let's adjust our page size to be 50, 50, 50. There we go. And we can export this one. So let's call this one scatter time. And then we'll export that. Okay, so we've exported it. Let's go back over to Power BI Desktop. Let's load in our next visual. Scatter time. Open that guy up. It's successfully imported. I'll just click it here, and now we'll add all of our items. So let's go back over to the scatter time item. We now have our series X value and Y values. So we want our granularity to be the series and at the order level, because we want all of the items to be shown. The series will then be added to the series column. X value will be our X value, Y value will be your Y, and then our order values will be the orders. And so there we go. We've got our repeated chart now here in this one. We can also adjust the properties here. Let's put our background back on so you can see it again. Oops. Let's click the visual. And then the properties. Background on, color white. And there we go. We've got our transparency. Now, if you notice here, it doesn't look like it's actually fading too much, because I believe this is the count of order and not the actual order. So if we go order here and say sum of orders, it's actually going to do the sum, because the count of every single item in this chart would have been 1, so it would do the same value. But if we do the sum of order, it'll do sum of 1, which is 1, sum of 5, which would be 5, and sum of 7, which would be 7. So that actually does create some contrast between the lightest elements and the darkest elements on the page. Another thing I'll note here is you can actually adjust some of the properties here on the page. So remember how we adjust the properties before? You can actually adjust some of the scale domains here as well on the page. So if I had those page parameters of 50 and 0, I can actually adjust this even further. So I can say, 80, and it'll actually adjust the perimeter of the chart. So these are some of the chart properties you can also adjust here as well. To adjust that additionally, you can. Okay, so that is our putting time-based values inside an X and Y scatter chart. And we'll move on to the final chart. This is called the ribbon chart. So what we're going to use here is we're going to use some data about drug-related incidents and then traffic-related incidents by countries inside the US, or by states inside the US. So let's first build our chart. We're going to go here and grab some data. So we're going to grab our states, and we'll grab some traffic data and some information about drugs. And then what we will do is we'll change this to a table. So then we have table information, and so now we have our states, and then we have specific information. This is the count of items for each of these things. And I think these are like average items or items per 10,000 people in the state. So it's already being changed. But for intents and purposes here, we need one dimension column and we need two numerical columns. That's really what we're going after. Now we're going to export this data. We'll call this data number 5. Data number 5. Sounds like that would be a good song. Okay, moving back over here to Power BI desktop, or sorry, the charts program. Let's hit refresh and we'll start a clean chart. All right, so here's the new chart. We're going to get rid of the demo piece. We'll then readjust this guy here. And let's start building. So we're going to start by getting rid of the plot segment initially. So we're going to get rid of this thing. Now, one of the things we haven't done before, and we're going to do for the first time on this one, is we actually have the ability of being able to put marks on the page segment. And this will help us define regions or areas inside the page that we want to adjust. So I can grab this first mark, drop it in here at the top. And this is going to be like a header that I'm going to use. And then I can adjust the height of this. So we're going to change the height to like 40, say. Now I'm going to grab another mark. I'm going to put it at the bottom here. And now I'm going to adjust the bottom of this to also be a height of 40. Now, why this is important is because when I lock these marks onto the guides of the page, when I adjust the page size, those marks will automatically adjust and they'll always stay aligned to those areas of the page. If I adjust the top of the chart and adjust that to be 50, or let's make it something more drastic, let's say 80, it'll automatically adjust that guide against that page. So let's drop it back up to 50 here, boom, back to 50. All right, let's add some more marks here for the middle of the page, which we're going to segment out some stuff here. Let's grab this one, and this is going to have a width of, let's call it 60. That should be fine. And we'll add another mark here on this side. We'll also grab the width to be 60. Like that, great. Okay, so now we've been able to define some areas in the page that we can work with. Now for this one, we're not going to use any 2D plot segments. We're only going to use 1D plot segments. So this is the one-dimensional line. So we're going to start here on the line, and lines are directionally important, right? So wherever you start is the lowest value, and wherever you end is the highest value. So for this line, I'm going to put a line there. Oh, it looks like I forgot a step. I didn't change my data set. Let's replace the data set. Let's go to data number 5. Try that again. Data number 5. There it goes. State, traffic, and then the drug information. So let's go over here, and now we're going to start with the drug information first. So we'll go over here, drop that to the line, and then we will, we need to adjust the direction of this. So let's go back to the plot segment here, and we're going to say opposite. So flip it around the other side. There we go. And now we will make it go from 0 to 60. Now we can grab a mark and put that on the mark area. Now these marks are kind of all over the place and they're super wide. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the glyph this time, and we're going to adjust the height of the entire glyph to only be 7. So that makes every single glyph be the exact same height. Now we can also adjust the glyph here, and it looks like it's extending too far to the left. So I'm going to drop the glyph and only make it the right-hand side of this visual. Now what we can do is we can change the color of it. So we're going to change the fill color to something like a blue. And because there's a lot of density of points right here, we can see they're kind of on top of each other. Let's change the opacity to 0.5. And that will then lighten some of them and show density regions within those plot segments. All right, that finishes off our first plot segment. We're now going to add a new glyph, and now we're going to add another plot segment. Now this one's going to be the state names. So we want them to be alphabetically from the top down. So this time I'm going to start from the top, and I'm going to work my way to the bottom of the page. Now we'll grab our state names, we'll add them here. We'll add a mark on the page. We're going to make all of the marks on this one, the glyphs, the height of this one will also be 7 because we want them to match. And now what we'll do is we will add a height to these. So for these heights, we're going to make it the drug information. So the width of those bars will all be the same as that. We're going to adjust this glyph to be just the left-hand side. And it's all jumbled up. We can't really see what's going on. So let's just finish up the colors here. Fill will now be blue. And now we also want to remove the axis because we're going to actually reapply a new axis with text on it. So let's go over here to the plot segment number 2. We're going to turn off the visibility so you can't see it. And this chart is a little bit stretched thin, so let's maybe make it a bit wider here so we can see a little bit more between things there. That looks better. All right, so now we have by state each of the height of the bars. Now we can make a link between the two. So we're going to say we're going to link plot segment 1 and plot segment 2. We're not going to use a line this time, but instead we're going to use a band. Create the link, and now we've got these banded segments. So the height of this bar, which is in like a bar chart that's tilted on its side, now aligns to the location of that value in a number line. So we can say the height of the bar is at the top here. So this, on the number line here, we're able to see distributions, or how dense the population is in a certain area, or where the data lives together. Where now we're talking like, you know, standard deviations and density of plot areas. And maybe there's some insightful data there. Let's change the type of this line to Bezier, and let's change the curviness up to 120. So we get some really good curvy there. And then that looks pretty good. Let's move on and add some more information in the middle of our chart. So we will add another glyph, and drop in another plot segment. We'll go from the top to the bottom. And this time we'll add the text boxes to this. Now we'll grab our state to those text boxes, and we'll align our text box right there in the middle of, there we go, snap it right there in the middle. So that's in the middle. The text looks a little bit large, so let's just drop that down just by a hair. I think that will work. It's a little bit small, but I think we can make it work. All right, and then we also need to align the states. So we're going to drop this on here, states as well. So this will, by adding the state to the axis here, this will always ensure that the states names will always be aligned to everything else on the page. So plot segment number 3, don't need that axis, we'll turn that off. And then we've built the left half of the chart. Let's try and build the right side real quick. Again, we're going to add a new glyph. We're going to do another plot line linear plot segment, starting from the top down. We're going to drop on the states to the axis, drop in our marks, change our marks to a height of 7. Now we will adjust the width of the marks. We'll add the traffic information now to the width of those. And here we have traffic information going from 0 to 24. We need this to be 60 because this is the same value as the other chart. Let's go to our plot segment and turn off the visibility. There's our chart plot type. Let's change the color. So click on the shape, click the fill. Let's change it to this orange color. No, let's go to the purple color. Purple looks better. Next, we will then drop in yet another glyph. And then we'll do another plot segment. We're going to go from the bottom up now because we're going to go from 0 to a high number at the top because these are directional. Drop in a mark. Let's make all of our marks the same height. So click on glyph number 4, make the height of the 7 again. Adjust the size of it so it's just on the left-hand side. We want to add the traffic information to the axis. And then we want to adjust that so that it is going from 0 to 60 because we want the same chart axis on both the left and the right side. And now we will want to change the color of the shapes. Click on the fill, change this to our dark purple, change the opacity to 0.5 again. And now we will make our links on this part of the chart. So we'll take our links, and now we know the last 2 plot segments is what we add. So plot segment 4 and 5 by holding Shift, hit create links. Oops, looks like I made a line there. So let's undo that. Let's go back up to our link number 2. Let's erase that. Let's add a new link. Holding Shift, click 4, click 5, change it to band, and then create links. Change it to Bezier. Change it to 120. And there we go. So now we've made this chart where we can see on the left-hand side, this is the drug information. So we can see the distribution of incidence by state in a number line. And then we can see the correlation between that on the right-hand side and see the incidence of traffic incidents by state as well. So now what we can do is we can turn off some of the shapes information. So turn those shapes off. And there we go. We've got a nice clean chart here for what we want. Okay, so I think we've got everything taken care of. We can then export this again. I know we're like at the last minute here. One thing I will note here is we do have some different scale ranges here. So we had plot segment number 1, which was the one on the left-hand side, and one on the right for the right-hand side. We actually don't want these to auto scale, so we want to turn those off. So we'll turn those off because when we get into Power BI Desktop, we want all the values to go from 0 to 60. So this will turn off those auto scaling items. I believe plot segment 2 and 4 were also the ones for the bars in the middle, so we'll also turn those off. And let's just call this dual ribbon. Export it. And then we will do our last step here. We'll go back over to Power BI Desktop, and we'll import our visual. Dual ribbon is right there. We'll open them up. Change our plot area type to the dual ribbon chart. And now we will add all of our items here. So we want to add granularity by state. We want to add the state under the state area. Traffic should be for traffic, and the drug information for drug information. And there's our nice pretty chart. So now we'll be able to make our chart. Now it's disordered right now, so we can sort it by state. So now we can go here, sort by state. And we want it in ascending order. And there we go. Now we've resorted our states. And then as we interact with the chart, it should automatically redraw all of our parts there. And it looks like my unscaling inside the middle axis did not work right. So the scaling items, this is why these are not being misaligned, because they were the middle area. I think I turned off the auto scaling, and that's what I needed that on for that one. So anyways, that's what that chart should look like. And there's actually a full video on that as well on the YouTube site. So if you want to check that out, you can there as well. Let's unfilter that. There's back to our data. So there we go. We have our nice pretty chart. So hopping back over to the slide presentation. Here's the last little piece here. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Here are some other additional links. If you want to go to build your own charts, you can go to charts.powerbi.tips. If you want to go download free things from the gallery, check out the gallery. For more demos, you can go to this demo. This is the demo that I did here today. And then there's also another video there that you can watch from YouTube. And there are also some additional materials around building custom visuals and charts if you go to powerbi.tips/more resources and MBAS 2019. All right, that about wraps it up, and we're only 2 minutes over.
It's a good presentation, Mike. Thanks a lot, and it's exciting
fast.
one. Yeah.
Probably could have done 4 visuals instead of like 5.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Take care.